During the 16 Days of Action 2022 campaign,
Ghosts of Girls on Fire and Tech Shack Tactical TV interview ordinary but outstanding women.
Hashtag I am every woman.
In our interviews, we honor outstanding businesswomen who have made a difference in their specific sphere of society to ladies who have overcome horrific gender-based violence incidences.
We believe in action, not activism.
Why are women continually cast as helpless victims?
Bystanders to their own fate, presuming that victimhood is a fait accompli. We are not simply deer in the headlights of gender-based violence.
We can and will stand up for ourselves.
We are not second-class citizens who need special days and men standing up for us.
We say no more.
Activism does not change the minds of predators.
Predators will always be predators, waiting in the dark to claim their victims. Standing on street corners with placards saying that we are against gender-based violence has and never alone make a difference. Take action now, not to be a victim, and be a strong woman. Do not put your trust in anybody else except yourself. Take the example from the strong women in these interviews and be a warrior. Hashtag victim no longer.
Lynette Oxley here for Tech Shack Tactical TV and Ghosts of Girls on Fire with the 16 Days of Action against for no violence against women and children. I'm here with an amazing woman, Jasriel, Olivia Jasriel from the Jasriel Foundation. Welcome.
Hi, Lynette. How are you?
All right, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Are you feeling better? You have been ill and rushing around like crazy.
It's been insane, eh? It really has been insane. But at the end of every year, it's like this. So, yeah, it's it's just basically also just burnt out. I'm dealing with a lot more than I can cope with as one human being. So
yeah, I understand. I'm sort of in the same position. So yeah, we'll just we'll just go on. That's what we do.
Yes, that's exactly it. We just sort of look north and we carry on.
Exactly, absolutely. Tell me, let's start with who is Olivia? Who are you?
Okay, so Olivia is Olivia, but Olivia wasn't born Olivia. Olivia was born Sue Ellen Sheehan, and for Olivia's 5th birthday, or for Sue Ellen's 5th birthday, she was given a tennis coach and a tennis racket. And by the time I was 9 years old, I was number 1 in the country. And it was at that time, around about 9-10 years old, that I was recruited by the infamous Mr. Bob Hewitt, who was Wimbledon star, an icon around the world in terms of tennis. And, it was an absolute honor and a privilege to be approached by him and offered the opportunity to be coached by him. And then it went bad. And at the age of 12, he raped me for the first time in his car at the tennis club where we used to have one of our squad sessions on a Tuesday afternoon. And it was just not a pleasant experience at all. And I tried to tell my mom, and she dismissed what I was telling her and what I was trying to tell her, and I didn't really have a vocabulary, so I didn't really know what to say. She dismissed it, and he had told me that nobody would believe me. So nobody believed me. So where did I go from there? And I sat with this deep, dark secret for almost 30 years. I suffered from severe depression. I think I've maybe tried to commit suicide 8 or 9 times. I had dysfunctional relationships. I had a dysfunctional relationship with my parents as a result of the anger that, I felt towards them for not supporting me. And I spent pretty much my entire life running away. So I traveled a lot. And in my 40s, in fact, I think it was the same year that I turned 40. In fact, yes, no, it was when I was 41. I tried to commit suicide, and I drove into a tree at about 120 kilometers an hour. And all that I got out of that was a broken spine. But it wasn't all bad. And, I remember lying in hospital and disclosing why I felt useless. And I just had no reason to want to be on this planet. And I just had the most amazing psychologist and psychiatrist, and we slowly started working through everything, and everything started, falling into place. And then I was contacted one day completely out of the blue, about 6 months after my suicide attempt, by a reporter from the Boston Globe. And it was one of my very, very dear friends that had put Bob Hewitt, the reporter, in contact with me. And my friend Graham phoned me, and he said, he used to call me Suey. And he said to me, Suey, I need to ask you something. And I said, sure. I mean, you could ask me anything. We'd been friends since I think we were about 6 years old. And he said to me, did Bob ever do anything to you? And before I knew what had happened, I answered yes. And from there on, there was no turning back. Absolutely no turning back. And it turned into this monumental web of people who all knew of other people he had abused, and just turned into this huge thing. And we initially never really thought that we would see the inside of a courtroom, and we didn't even really know that we could lay criminal charges because of the amount of years that had gone by. And we approached the International Tennis Hall of Fame, a couple of us, and we requested that they remove him from the Tennis Hall of Fame. And initially they weren't really interested, and they didn't want to hear our stories. And then they said to us, if we open up a criminal case against him, they will launch an investigation. So I thought to myself, well, okay, fine. Here goes. So I went and I opened up a criminal charge against him.
And you were the first.
Initially, sorry.
You were the first.
Yes. So Twiggy Tolkien, who was one of the victims that testified, she had opened a case against him in 1980, but the state prosecutor had withdrawn the case.
Okay.
But she still had a whole lot of documentation.
Okay.
And so, yes, I was the first, and we never thought we would see the inside of a courtroom. And what we went through was hell. But nevertheless, the International Hall of Fame, Tennis Hall of Fame, kept their word, and they launched this international investigation, which, I don't even want to know how much paperwork and how many phone calls and how many hours went into the investigation based on a petition that we had started and information that we had retrieved. And he was temporarily suspended. And in 2015, we managed to have our day in court and be heard. And in March 2015, he was found guilty. I think for me, what was the most devastating part of the trial was that my parents testified for him and testified against me. And we got a conviction, and in 2016 he went to prison after going to the Supreme Court of Appeal and taking us to the Constitutional Court. And in 2020 he got parole, and he's now sitting at home. Not all bad. The Jasriel Foundation the Jasriel Foundation is now, up and running, and I have been given the most amazing opportunities to help victims through the court process based on my experience and what I learned. And I've had a lot of successes. I'm currently sitting with 22 sporting federations that I'm working with, and about 86 victims that I'm assisting. So I'm very busy.
So that you actually answered some of my next question. How common is abuse in sport, and who do they abuse? Is it everybody, or is it usually the top stars? How common is the abuse South Africa and worldwide?
Interestingly, I had a very, very amazing conversation with a gentleman from Canada yesterday, from Global Athletes. And, I thought it was just us. And he said to me, it's a global problem. our biggest problem is that the federations cover up for the abusers and the coaches, and that's, I think, just in a bid to prevent their reputation from being tarnished, that being the federation. So, if you look at 22 federations, I was looking through documentation today, and in April this year, I only had 11 sporting codes. So from April till now, I've doubled the amount of sporting codes. So it's rife. Pretty much all the coaches that I'm dealing with are coaches that are from a high level. They are predominantly not registered coaches and haven't been through all the proper screening, the proper vetting, the proper channels in terms of getting their coaching levels, etc. And it's a big problem, because sport is very, very easy access to children, and these guys and women put themselves in a position of sport or as a coach so that they've got access to the children.
So it's basically premeditated. They basically go in there because it's a lovely market for them, if you want to put it that way.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting, and this is what I've just learned over the years, is none of the abuse that I have witnessed in the past 13 years that I've been doing this in my personal capacity and now on a full-time basis, has it ever been violent or opportunistic. It's always been grooming of the parents, grooming of the child, and then the abuse. So yes, it to answer your question, it is premeditated with absolute out of doubt.
Oh, these people should actually be put away for, it's not premeditated murder, rape. It's something that should have long sentences, if not life sentences. If I look at what I went through, during the parole hearing, now, I just want to go back a step, and, following the court case, I mean, I lost my job, I lost my house, my whole world absolutely fell apart, and I never saw my son for 10 years. It was really devastating, and I was going for a job interview, and I went to an agency, and I was told, I think I'd been in the newspaper the day before in the Sunday Times. There was an article in the Sunday Times, and she recognized me. And the agent said to me that I will never find a job and I'm unemployable because of what I had done. And, I left there feeling absolutely broken again, because it's just further victimization. And I decided then and there I was going to change my name. And that's how I became Olivia Jasriel. And the Jasriel part is my grandsons, Jasper and Gabriel. And I combined their names, and it's in their honor. And I get all heart sore. Yes, that is something positive. And you get raped by the system over and over and over again. And that happens, unfortunately. So yeah. Olivia Jasriel is, and the Jasriel Foundation is something really positive. So that's excellent.
Well, I'm very, very proud of the fact that I'm the only person in the country that does what I do.
Tell us Tell us a little bit more about what the Jasriel Foundation does.
Wow.
And
I'm going to quickly get a document.
And we'll link up.
What I do is I walk the victims, and I have a lot of historical abuse cases, but I walk the victims through the process from laying criminal charges right through the justice process, which can take about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I see it right through to the end, and then post sentencing if we get a conviction. So it's a very, very long road, and my phone doesn't stop. I'm busy 24/7. I've challenged SASCOC, I've challenged the federations, I've challenged the international federations, and I think I'm finally starting to be heard. in that I'm being contacted almost daily from international organizations who have, you know, noticed what I'm achieving. And I have cases countrywide. I've got 2 cases in Australia. I've just gotten one from the UK. So you know, it's a lot of work. It's tough. It's draining. You know, it does take its toll, but I'm very good at what I do, and I absolutely love what I do.
You know, I spend this time talking to victims once a year. So I don't know how you guys actually do it. So I take my hat off for you guys, because it's so difficult. Because if you're thinking about, let's take it one victim. If you're talking about a 4 or 5 year period that you're actually dealing with one person, you get to know that person. You can't not be unemotionally involved, not be involved with that person on an emotional level. So it must you must get amazing friends, but it must be also a lot of heartache.
You know, I try not to become too friendly with them, and you know, at the end of the day, I have to be very careful not to get triggered, and you know, I've got to take care of myself, otherwise I can't take care of them. So you know, I'm very careful in terms of the boundaries that I put in place, and I'm always there for them. I check in on them fairly regularly. You know, I make sure that they're okay. I know that there are some victims who don't want to ask for help, so I say to them, you know, what do you need? Just talk to me. And I think I come from a place of complete understanding. And I made a promise when I initially created the Jasriel Foundation a few years ago, and that was that no child will ever have to go through what I went through, not only as a child but as an adult as well. And you know, it's heartbreaking to see the women and men who are in my age group who have been abused 45, 50 years ago. You know, it's horrible to see how broken they are. But one of the most rewarding things I see in court, and sometimes even while they're doing their statements, their initial statements, is suddenly I don't know, it's like a penny drops in their head and they're empowered, and suddenly they stand up straight, they make eye contact, and suddenly they own their whole situation. And that's when everything changes. And for me, that's such a profound moment, because then you know they're okay.
They're on the way to heal.
Or they're going to be okay. I mean, it never leaves you, but they're going to be okay. Yes.
If we take a step back, what went on in your mind when you got raped? And did the rape continue, obviously, for a couple of years? When you were raped at the age of 12, am I correct? What was in your mind? What went on in your mind? It must have been terrifying.
You know, there wasn't really anything that went on in my mind at the time, and you know, to be honest, I don't know if it lasted 7 seconds, 7 minutes. You know, I don't know. What I do know is I remember that it was excruciatingly painful, and I remember looking for the groundsman of the tennis complex, and I was trying to look through the windows of the car, because it happened in his car. And you know, that afternoon, I still had to go and clean myself up and go and play tennis that afternoon for about 3 or 4 hours. And the thing that has stuck with me the most is the smell of sex. To this day, if I smell sex, I gag. And you know, it's been tough on my relationship. You know, it is what it is. And I can't stand the smell of sweaty men. So I have a lot of triggers that take me back to that moment. And yes, it did go on for a long time. And, you know, it wasn't always rape. It was other things as well. But don't touch me on the back of my head. that just absolutely sends me into a flat spin. So anybody that knows me well knows, don't touch me on the back of my head. And I think also the way he discarded me left me very, very broken. And I mean, I have huge abandonment issues, not only because of the way he discarded me, but obviously because of the way my parents discarded me. So I've got a lot of my own personal issues to deal with. What's refreshing on some level is that the victims I deal with also go through what I went through, where they are disbelieved. And I will never disbelieve a victim. Never, ever.
And you don't have a relationship anymore with your parents, I suppose?
I don't. In fact, very sadly, I heard last year from Bob Hewitt himself that they had immigrated to England. And I don't even know where they are in England.
That's sad. And Bob Hewitt, when you saw him for the first time after that many years, how did that feel? Empowering because he was on the other side, or were you frightened?
I was in survival mode, so I had to dig very deep and I had to be very strong. I'm 6'2", and one thing I did every court appearance was I made sure I wore the highest heels I could possibly find.
That won't work with me. I'm short. Wouldn't have worked with me. I'm very short.
So I always made sure, that I was taller than him. Sitting in court, initially, I was not prepared for what I was up against. And, I remember sitting there and being asked these questions. And then at one point, and I'm going to go back to that part where you get empowered. I caught him staring at me. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to stare back at you. And I stared back at him until he looked away. And there's a photograph on the internet. And if I have this certain look, if I give you that look, you must know you have really just rubbed me up the wrong way. And it's captured in a photo. And it was at that point that I felt good. And despite the length of time it took us to actually get him into prison and having to go to the SCA, I had a great support system. And I sort of taught myself to not worry about the things that I couldn't control. And one of the things I couldn't control was what the outcome was going to be. So, all the wins we've had have been extremely empowering. Getting back onto the tennis court has been extremely empowering. Seeing him at the parole hearing, it was tough. Seeing him in his orange jumpsuit on some level was satisfying. But the parole hearing, I was abused terribly by him and his attorney or his advocate, and it wasn't a pleasant experience at all. So that left me quite traumatized as well. Having said that, here I am, and I'm going strong, and I'm happy, and I'm in an amazing relationship, and I'm reunited with my son, and life is good. And
I do believe,
to be honest, if I had to go through what I went through again to get to where I am today, I would do that.
That is fantastic. I also feel that I love my life. It's not always been easy, but I wouldn't change anything. And I do believe women are warriors. We all have that warrior in us.
We all do. And, Lynette, every single morning when I get up, it's work. There's some days where I don't want to get up. There's some days where I just think, God, I just can't face this day. And I don't. I actually just, as my partner says, he says, I clutch out. And that's exactly what I do. I go and I do something to just switch off for a bit because I need to. And I'm not okay every day, but it's also okay to not be okay every day. I'm not a machine.
None of us are. I usually give myself the speech about put your big girl panties on and get on with it.
Well, yeah, put your crown on. People are depending on you.
Exactly.
Depending on you.
Get on with it.
And I had a very interesting discussion with somebody the other day, and we were talking about Shem. She was brutally stabbed 16 times by her boyfriend, who is a sports coach. And fortunately, she's alive. But I mean, she's disfigured, and she's been through hell and back. And she was saying what she's battling with is that life just goes on around her. And that's what she's struggling with more than the actual trauma of what happened to her. And I understand that feeling, because life does go on. And, then you're also surrounded with people who don't know what to say to you. So they either don't say anything, or they avoid you, or they say the most inappropriate things. And one of those is, but why don't you just get over it and move on with your life?
You're not the first person that said that to me today, by the way.
Oh,
I can't put myself in your shoes. I haven't walked your path. Each of us, I can't say what's good and what's bad, because we all walk our own path.
We do, and it's how we choose to walk that path. I had another incident with another victim who frequently over the course of this year has had little meltdowns, and then, well, it's more like a tantrum, and then she threatens suicide. And it absolutely, I've been running around in the middle of Johannesburg in the Carlton Centre on a Friday night looking for her, getting messages where she slit her wrists and she's sitting in a bathroom, and I've got to find her. And it absolutely, I've lost my train of thought. But it's I said to her the other day, I said, we can't keep doing this. So you need to choose. You're either going to be a victim, or you're going to do something with what happened to you. And she said to me, I choose to be a victim. And, at that point, I realized
you can't do anything.
I have to walk away from her. And it's also a little bit of tough love.
It is. Our thing from Girls on Fire is #victim no longer. It's important, and that's why I changed activism to action. You need to do something yourself, because nobody else can do that for you. You have to make the decision that your life is going to change with the help of other people, but the decision is yours.
I completely agree with you. And one of the best things I ever did was change my name. My name has a lot of meaning to me. Olivia means peace. It's, extending the olive branch. It's very, very hard work. But I basically changed my identity and left behind that little 12-year-old girl that was so traumatized. And she does come out every now and again if I'm triggered. And
she's you.
Off to the therapist, and put Sue Ellen back in her box again, and we carry on. So it is tough, and it's very, very hard work, and you have to, it's a choice. You can choose to put in the work or not. And Absolutely. It's very easy to live as a victim. I've done it.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy not to be a victim. Tell me, you said, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Tell me, you are playing tennis again, because you said somewhere along the line, I just want to play tennis, and then you stopped playing tennis. You playing tennis again?
Yeah. So I made it was actually a poster that I made of Bob Hewitt and me, how I looked the first time he raped me. And in the middle of that, I wrote there, I only wanted to play tennis. And really what that meant was I only wanted to play tennis. I didn't want to have to do all the other things I did in order to have that privilege of playing tennis. I gave up when I was 24 in 1994, end of 93. When I was playing a tennis tournament, and he arrived there, and I was in the final and I was winning, and he arrived and I saw him, and I completely fell apart, lost the match, walked off the court, put my tennis rackets down, went home, and didn't pick up a tennis racket for 24 years. And then he said in court that he thought I wasn't good enough, and that the reason he fired me from his squad was because I was never going to amount to anything. And I thought,
That's psychological abuse. That's it.
Screw you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to show
absolutely.
you. Yeah, and within that year, I played interprovincial. I did phenomenally well, and I'm actually become a paddle tennis addict at the moment. So I'm playing tennis and paddle tennis, and I still struggle on the tennis court. I still get triggered, but I'm finding the paddle tennis. I'm reconnecting with people from my past, and I'm very happy when I'm on a paddle tennis court. So it's pretty much like tennis, just a little bit different. And then I play league. I don't play tournaments anymore. I stopped just before COVID. I've, as a result of all the trauma I've been through, I think my body just couldn't take it anymore. I've developed autoimmune arthritis, and I'm in constant pain. So he got a 3-year sentence and I got a life sentence. I live in a box of pain, depression, antidepressants, anxiety medicine, and quite frankly, I don't believe he should have ever gotten out of prison. He stole 40 odd years of my life.
He stole a lot of other people's lives as well. Yeah.
Over 200, just by the way.
That's ridiculous. And the courts and the legal system do not support victims. They really don't in most of the cases. Or did they? Am I wrong?
You know what? I was very fortunate, but what I have found is, if you know how to navigate the system, which obviously is what I've learned over the years, the system actually works very well for victims. But it does take a person like me who's not afraid to walk into a police station and say, I don't want to speak to you. I want to speak to the colonel. I want the sergeant of or the colonel of the FCS.
Yeah.
That's who I want to speak to, and make an appointment with him, take the victim to him, and then build relationships with the prosecutors, and work with the prosecutors. And the system does work.
Okay. But you do have allowed to. You've got what I call command presence. If you don't have command presence, you don't get stuff done. But going into the police station says,
as I said, I'm 6'2". I walk into a room, I've walked into the room.
Exactly, and that's really important. Tell me, if you've got a message for the 16 days of action to other ladies, what would you like to say?
I actually have 2 things that I would like to say, and the first thing that I want to say is, I'm sorry for the way I'm going to put this. It's a little bit of an 8-cup parada, but
Yes.
A very strong message that I want to get across is saying I don't want to get involved, or I don't want to go forward with a case, or I don't want to, unearth all this stuff. You're potentially putting other people at risk. And that's something that I have to wake up with every morning, is that if I had persevered and found somebody who would hear me, I wouldn't have the guilt of all these other women who came after me, that he abused. We may have been able to stop him. And it's our obligation as adults, as adult women, to take care of not only each other, but of our children as well. So if you suspect something is wrong, there probably is something wrong. It is your duty and your obligation to report it in terms of the law. 8-cup parada over. My message to survivors of abuse is, it's never ever too late to report. Fortunately, we no longer have a statute of limitations in this country. That was abolished in 2018. And
Frankel
we all understand, with the Frankel case, and we all understand that is coming out and speaking about your abuse is a process. I more than anything understand that, and I'm here. I, Olivia Jasriel, have made a promise that no child will ever go through what I have been through in my life. And if I can provide a little bit of healing, a little bit of justice, a little bit of comfort, then my job is done. And it is scary, but it's actually not that bad.
I It was wonderful speaking to you. You're a real warrior. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll speak and see each other soon.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to seeing the video, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the other videos. And message to all the ladies who are brave enough to do these interviews. Good on you, ladies.
Absolutely.
Well done.
I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire. I've made a choice. I stand proud. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that I hold dear. Independent and strong, you will not keep me down. You can't break me. I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground, girl on fire. I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed. I am your equal. I've empowered myself, I have practiced and trained. Fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard. We'll stand together. I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire. I've made a choice. I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. We're girls on fire. We're not victims. We're girls on fire. We'll stand our ground. Girls on fire. We've made a choice. We stand proud. We're girls